Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Wilbur Games YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing fantastically well. Today, we're going to have a bit of a roundup of UCL Fantasy as we come to the end of the group stage. Talk about the Matchday 6 since we've last spoken when we did the Matchday 6 kind of preview video, and just get a gauge of where we're sitting as we go into the World Cup and general kind of Champions League break where we won't have matches again until February. So I thought, nice little summary video, and then we'll have a quick look at the fixtures for the next round, get a slight gauge around what we think on some of those fixtures, but then we will do more content on that when we get towards, I think it's actually on Valentine's Day, the 14th of February, the next match day will start. So before we jump into it, I appreciate all the support on the videos. As ever, the last video did really well as well. I appreciate that. So any likes or subscriptions to the channel really help the channel, and both are completely free. So make sure you just click that button you know you want to. I appreciate the subscriptions on the back of the last video as well. Really are appreciated. So let's jump into it. So then Matchday 6, if you saw the team selection video we did for Matchday 6, I was on the Limitless. So going into the game week, we were about 9,200 ranked in the world. So the Limitless, my real aim from the Limitless was to get up into that top 5k and push on as good as we can, because I feel like the group stage is a great chance to do it. Matchday 6 is a decent chance to do it, especially with the Limitless, because there's a lot of rotation. So I think that has worked pretty well in our favour, you'll see by the score on here. So the Matchday 6, we scored 105 points. I'll just touch on the players that we tried to get points from on the first match, on the first day. Diego Costa, which was very disappointing. I think it was 95th minute he conceded the goal late on in that fixture. Bergwijn, Pedro Porro and Mane didn't really show up for us in terms of getting any points on that first match day, so they were all out of there. Luckily, Courtois, the hero that he is, managed to save a penalty, getting a 9 points, and again I think he lost his clean sheet in about the 84th minute approximately, so that could have even been better there, but we're very happy with that. Obviously saved a penalty from Courtois. We've seen earlier in the campaign that Costa is very good at saving penalties as well, so Courtois' turn this time. Took a gamble on Chilwell, didn't particularly pay off, as you can see there. I needed 2 points there because I think of the early goal against, and of course didn't help there. We were looking at Barcelona assets as we discussed on the preview video. So the idea we had was probably always to have Alonso in the team. We originally were looking at Lewandowski, but then we got team news a day or so before that Lewandowski would get rested. So there's a chance that Ferran Torres could play as a striker at least, or in the front three. So compared to the team selection, we did make a change of a Barcelona attacking asset. As you can see on the first day, we actually captained Ferran Torres for his 2 goals, which was fantastic, and put the captain on him, so we got those double points, and we couldn't have got better from anyone else on the pitch that we had. So great result there, and obviously we got Alonso with his attacking contribution as well, so definitely can't complain with those Barcelona assets that we did pick up. A few returns in there, Rodrigo getting a goal, Wijndal getting, I think it was an assist in that game, and then Grimaldo seems to be a hero like every other week, or at least a few weeks in UCL Fantasy, picking up that goal and a nice healthy 12 points there. Gian Mario getting the goal right near the end as well, which is fantastic in terms of just pushing me over that 100 mark to the 105. And then front line, Messi and Kane getting something at least, and then Mbappe the star, as he's very often been during UCL Fantasy, with the player of the match along with Ferran Torres. So overall for the match day, 105, which I think very strong, especially against some of the other teams you'll have seen, especially with the rotation of being quite hard to get even a full lineup out, let alone the best lineup. So I'm quite happy with that, and as you'll see from the rank change, so we were 9,200, so we've risen a good amount of places up to 1,700 in the world, so definitely mission achieved on that match day 6. It's putting in the hard yards to try and maintain that through the knockout stages, which can be a bit more volatile, but we've definitely put us in a good position going forward. I had a quick look at the overall rankings, and I think first has got about 20 or 30 point gap even on second and third, which is a bit crazy there, but definitely happy with that. So we've jumped probably about 7,500 places, so we can definitely not complain. Wanted to get in the top 5k, so we are in a good position going into knockout rounds. Can forget about it until February time, and then we'll go for it again. So I'll just touch on the fixtures that we did have drawn on Monday. Recording this on Wednesday after the draw, so I delayed the video slightly so we could discuss the draw as well. So if we look what we'll have coming up on the next match day when we are back in action in February, as you can see there, I'll just touch on a few of the ties and a few of the initial thoughts. Not going to go into it in great depth. We'll do a more kind of draft, looking at more players in detail when we get obviously closer to the point, probably early February. We'll have a look at this, but look at the draws, first impressions, and of course in terms of UCL Fantasy. Milan against Spurs. I feel in this draw there's certain ties that kind of from a fantasy point of view you might want to avoid. I think definitely a tactic when you get to the knockout phases, especially in the last 16, is just target the team that you expect to win in the tie. You might get to the quarterfinals or semi-finals where that's a bit more hard to predict, but I think especially for last 16, if you think there's certain teams that are like your strong favourites, I think you need to back that team. So you can argue both of these fixtures on the 14th are quite difficult. Milan and Spurs, personally, if you want to go for one asset, fine, but I don't think I'll even touch this fixture because it's one of those fixtures that could go either way. I'd be edging to Milan if I was going for an asset. I think either like a Teo Hernandez, either a Rafael Leao, even Giroud's been doing quite well recently. So that is one of those fixtures I wouldn't particularly be going all in on. PSG and Bayern is a very difficult one because I feel like you're definitely inclined to go over a PSG attacker, even if PSG get knocked out or have difficulty in that tie. Because of the value of that attacker, you can basically go to any other attacker in the game. And especially that first fixture at home, I can't see anyone going without a PSG attacker there with the unlimited transfers. And you might, I feel like in that situation, you've got two big hitters. So whichever one gets through, you probably want to consider an asset when they get through. So I'm quite tempted to maybe go for an attacker from both sides here to cover both regions. And obviously when Bayern have the return leg, you might favour them slightly more because they'll be at home. But that first day going to be quite difficult. I think if we're talking about a captaincy option on that first day, I think it'll have to be that PSG attacker. So that is very much why I think everyone's going to have to have coverage for PSG on that day. So we move on to Wednesday, the 15th February, where we've got Dortmund against Chelsea. Again, especially in Germany, that is going to be a tough one to call. I think in a lot of these close ones, it's kind of, if you're going to back a team, back the home team, depending on what leg it is. And so again, I can't really call that game, I'm not going to lie. If I was captaining someone on this 15th, I would be tempted to go for Benfica. I think Benfica, and we'll maybe touch on a few other teams as we get down here, Benfica will probably provide those more value options in your team. We've seen just from looking at Matchday 6, you've got like Grimaldo, you've got João Mario, who's on a lot of set pieces. So I think Benfica are going to be a perfect example of teams that are going to build kind of the budget players into our team to enable us to get obviously the Mbappes, the more expensive players in there. So Benfica, that draw against Club Brugge, you could argue is the easiest draw. They might struggle in the first leg, Benfica, but definitely at home they've got a fantastic record. So I'll definitely be backing Benfica in the home leg, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did quite well in that away leg as well. Dortmund and Chelsea, not overly set on either of them. I think I'll be tempted when it comes to the second leg, Chelsea at home, and they are on the first day, to potentially go for some Chelsea defenders, maybe even one attacker, because you will know the lineups on the second leg. But the first leg, I think it's a avoid, and probably use one of your free transfers between the legs to get in a Chelsea player potentially for the second leg. Then moving on to the next week's worth of fixtures, you've got Frankfurt against Napoli, where again, I think Napoli, if they can keep up that form, obviously February is a long time away, like over 2 months away. You've got World Cup in between, you're not sure what the form's going to be like, but if Napoli can keep up how they've done this season, again, there's going to be some interesting, more budget options from Napoli. Maybe slightly more expensive than Benfica, but definitely not up there with the big hitters. So I think I'll be backing Napoli in that fixture. maybe go 2 assets for them, maybe not all in, but definitely going in on Napoli there. And then you could argue the tie of the round, Liverpool against Real Madrid, again, is very difficult for predicting a result. I'd be very tempted to do what I said on PSG and Bayern, to maybe go for one attacker from each. You might want to back Salah in the first leg, you might want to flip him to Vinny Jr. in the second leg. It's just how you see that tie going. I think a lot of the transfers we make for the second leg might be impacted by the results we've seen in the first leg as well. If Real Madrid win 2-0 in the first leg and you're quite confident they'll go through, then you're probably going to abandon like a Salah to Vinny, like I said, just in preparation for the next round as well. So it's very much can influence your decision between the two match days. And then on to the final set of fixtures, which will be on the final day, Leipzig and Manchester City. I feel like this is the most obvious one you will see to go in on 3 Man City players. I would agree the away leg, this first fixture, is not going to be the easiest tie, but then when it comes to the return leg when Man City are at home, I'll be backing them to do quite well in that game, even if they're lost by a goal in the first leg, to probably recover it and get a few goals in the second, so definitely be backing them. And again, Inter and Porto is an interesting one. I think it'll be quite even. I think I'd just slightly edge Inter, but we've seen that Porto can be pretty strong, especially at the back. So again, it's a very suspect one that if you're looking for like 1 or 2 players to fill in some gaps in terms of value as well, Porto wouldn't be a bad one to go for, as we've seen from the goalkeeper especially. It's a decent backup option to go for, especially if you're trying to split your fixtures over the match days. So briefly what we've said, so Man City, I think initial thoughts would be going full in on them with 3 probably players. Into Porto, maybe 1 if you want a budget enabling option. Liverpool, Real, might be personal opinion which way you think that's going to go. It's going to be quite even, so maybe go for 1 on each. You might want to go for a Trent, but then also Anthony Jr. depending on which way the result's going to turn out. Obviously, if Vinny scores, it wipes out your Trent clean sheet, but then you can sub him out for maybe a Man City defender the day after. So it's just keeping a balanced approach on that one, especially on the tight fixtures. I'd be going probably 2 players from Napoli, at least 2 players from Benfica. Dortmund and Chelsea is quite difficult, and then spreading the risk across PSG and Bayern as well. Milan, maybe 1 player. But like I said, we'll build a draft as we discussed. And as I briefly mentioned, for the second leg of the round of 16, the Chelsea, Dortmund and the Benfica Bruges games are the first games of the match day. So compared to this first leg here, I think both these games are quite tight. I think you can kind of guess the PSG lineup, like ignoring, of course, injuries that can happen. But this second leg, especially with like a Chelsea, you've always got that risk around the lineup, especially with Potter at the minute. Benfica's maybe a bit more set, but you'll know the lineups going into the second legs for Chelsea. So I think you ignore Chelsea for the first leg, but then maybe take a risk on 1 or 2 of their players for the second leg, especially if they had like a draw or a favourable result in the first leg and you're quite confident in them going through. Definitely want to jump on. And like I said, Benfica, I think you'd have them for both ties. And obviously all the other fixtures just reverse. But I think that's the key one, because that'll be the first set of fixtures for the new match day. So it's one to watch out for. So yeah, like we've said overall, guys, very strong match day 6 for myself. Hope you all did very well in match day 6 as well. I can say best of luck then, but I hope you enjoy your break from UCL Fantasy. If you don't want to vote for fantasy football games, we're also going to be following the World Cup Fantasy. There should be a bit of a rules video and saying how the World Cup fantasy game will work very shortly after this video, probably the same day or the latest the day after this video is uploaded on the Wednesday that we're on now. So hopefully on Wednesday or Thursday you will also get a welcome to World Cup Fantasy. We'll talk about the rules, which are pretty closely linked to how we deal with UCL Fantasy, and then we'll be tracking the World Cup as we go through. Slightly different structure in terms of the match days, but I hope you'll join us for those videos as well. So you'll see the welcome to the kind of World Cup Fantasy video come in, and then we'll do a bit of a drafting video probably the following week to have a look at some potential players and interesting teams, etc. And then throughout the World Cup, obviously we'll have content for that. and we will potentially be doing some watch-alongs, which could be a mix between YouTube and Twitch, depending on how those fall with the days. It will generally probably be the 7 p.m. game. We'll try and cover majority of the days throughout the World Cup. So a bit of different content there for you guys. But for this video, like I said, make sure you like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and of course subscribe if you want to keep an eye on the World Cup content coming through the next few days, even weeks, and about 6 or 8 weeks in total of World Cup content. And then that's, of course, when we come back to around February time, we're flipping back to UCL. So fantasy for everyone, of course. So I appreciate everyone for listening to this video, and have a great rest of your evening, and see you on the next one.